How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.
Chepauk is fortress no more. 4 defeats in 5 so far, and now the Chennai Super Kings welcome Punjab Kings, a team who've been victorious on their last 2 visits to this venue. Let's build up to that game on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricinfo Timeout in the company of Daren, Ganga and Ambati. Rayudu. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Punjab have seen themselves fall out of the top 4, which is where they've been for most of the season, and they've got games coming up after this against Lucknow, Delhi, Mumbai. These are 2 big points for them.
Yeah, it will be big points for them, and I think it will be a sort of justification as to how they can sustain what we saw from the early part of the season with this Punjab Kings team. You look at that side and you think that they've gained a lot in what their openers have done. Priyansharya, Prab Simran, they've really set the tone for their season alongside their skipper, a new skipper who has been able to balance that role as a leader and that role as a top-order batter in that side. It's not an easy role to carry, especially in a complement of players where you're unfamiliar with them. I think their biggest concern is how will they get the Australian overseas players to fire and to sort of supplement what they've already achieved. From a bowling point of view, it's great that they have Yuzi Chahal coming into form. I think that's a big plus for them. So I think it's more positive than negative, and I expect that they will sustain and go on to qualify in the top 4.
They have won 5 of their last 6 games against CSK, not something usual given the history between these sides. And back-to-back wins at Chepauk is something very few teams can claim to have. But this season, they are meeting a CSK who are finding very little home comfort at Chepauk.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the best time to play CSK at Chepauk, if you actually think about that. And I feel, they have come into their own just a little bit in the previous game with Brevis batting in the middle order and also Ayush Matre. I think these 2 guys have shown the other batters how to go about in the innings, and I feel they're getting slightly better as the season progresses, and also their fast bowling looks far better in terms of Khalil and Kamboj, but Pathirana is struggling big time. I think he's someone that needs to really step up and get back into form if CSK, needs to really play a good game and also come close to beating Punjab.
Yeah, you set us up nicely for the detailing of this contest. You mentioned those 2 batters. Common link to them, they're the younger batters in the side, and those are the type of batters who have thrived for Punjab Kings. Priyansharya, the reverse fixture was when he announced himself to the world with that sparkling century in Molanpur against the Super Kings. And both of them together as well as individually have just been the story of this Punjab Kings season. How impressed are you by what you've seen?
Well, I think it's a fearlessness we've seen from the Gen Bowl players in this season's starter IPL. There's a fearlessness that you have to stand up and take notice of. It's very un-Indian-like if you played around my time in the early 2000s. It's a transformation that we've seen from batters in T20 cricket and more so in this IPL. Not in a bad way, but these top-order young Indian batters don't really play the reputation of bowlers. They see the game for what it's worth. They've been grown up in an era where the database of knowledge and information is readily available, so they can be inspired from a player from beyond the time when they were born, and they're still influenced and shaped by these players. So it's a fascinating landscape to be in, and I think that this is maybe the new generation of T20 players, where players don't think about getting out, players think about hitting every ball for 6, and then the second sort of consideration is how can I probably get a 4 or maybe a couple runs or a single. That's the shift in mindset for top-order batters, and I think when you could have a young player scoring a 35-ball 100, a young player scoring a 39-ball 100, by only playing 3 or 4 games in an intense tournament like the IPL, it just shows you the immense talent that is available in this country and in this landscape.
It's still very uncommon for a team to back 2 uncapped openers and not just for 1 or 2 games, give them the season. So how much credit for what we're seeing in Priyansh and Prab Simran do you give to the management in just letting them free?
Absolutely. I mean, lot of credit should go to Shreyas Iyer and Ricky Ponting as well, because they have not put any doubt in their mind, even though they have gotten out a few times in 20s or 30s, trying to play the way that they are playing, but still they don't seem to be having any sort of doubts in their mind or any sort of say a philosophy of playing a big innings. So that's where you see these really good innings come through at a brilliant strike rate. But also, I felt Prabh Simran, because he's little more experienced than Priyansh Arya, can become a little more consistent, because he should play a situation sometimes at least. Because otherwise, going into May, when the wicket starts slowing down in India, when the heat starts going up, and also at the business end of the season, you want your opener to play a big innings like what he has done. So I think if he gets a little more consistent, I feel it'll augur really well for Punjab.
And it is such a study in contrast to what has happened with CSK. Their openers, and they've tried a few different combinations, 5 different players tried, and close to no one has found that kind of gears. What can CSK learn from Punjab's way?
I think CSK, really needs to get onto the drawing board right now, because I'm sure they are there or thereabouts near the drawing board, and mostly it's a trial for players who are playing right now to make their places, or say cement their places for the next season, because they have been struggling. They have struggled at the auction, if you look at it, because they have set up a team in terms of playing spin well through the middle overs, but they haven't been able to get those personnel who could do that. So that is one area where they are looking at. Brevis coming in is a big boost, but you also need 2 or 3 other players around him, and also you need players on the bench. If somebody gets injured like Ruturaj Gaikwad did, you want somebody really experienced or really capable or has the skill to come into the squad. So they have a lot more going on than just the game against Punjab. So it's in an overall scheme of things, they are getting better. And definitely, it's a great learning for CSK, because they've never been in this sort of a situation ever. So because of 10 teams right now, the available talent is far lesser than what it used to be when CSK was picking teams. So I think they had a bad auction, definitely. And going forward, I think next year they'll come back very strongly.
You'd hope they persist with the likes of Sheikh Rashid and Ayush Matre and Devil Brevis for all the remaining games.
Indeed, and I think the other thing that you have to point out when you look at Chennai Super Kings is the fact that they appear to select a team with very little contingency. And as Ambati just mentioned, if a player like Ruturaj Gaikwad or maybe a Shubham Dubey goes into a situation where they're injured, what is that backup plan? They lack that. So it's refreshing to see that they've gone with Brevis. It's refreshing to see Matre at the top as well, bringing that sort of youthful enthusiasm, firepower. The other thing I'd like to see as well is the all-round ability of Shubham Dubey, not for him to just be used as an impact player. I think this is a team now that has to experiment a little bit more. I mean, as much as I know we've mentioned that the left-hand spinner is batting out of position, Jadeja, I think it's a new role for him, and give him the time for him to see if he can play multiple roles with the bat too. So, all is not lost. It's an opportunity for them to learn more about themselves so that next year they can be stronger.
Yeah, you hear all these answers and you realize it's such a wide range of issues that CSK have had through this campaign. One of the players who perhaps hasn't been highlighted as much is Matisha Pathirana. Such a big factor in the last 2 seasons for CSK, one of their retained players. Why has he been unable to replicate the highs of the last couple of campaigns?
I think it is mainly due to his action. He's come back after an injury, no doubt, but his action has slightly changed, and also with the kind of action that he has, his release can only be in a small little box. If he releases slightly ahead of that, it goes wide of the off stump, and if he releases it slightly behind, then it goes down the leg stump. So it is quite a huge challenge for him to actually release the ball at exactly the same place. So with that action, it is not easy. Maybe he'll work on that during this time before the next season, but definitely he needs more control in his bowling.
Yeah, those issues are well reflected. I think no bowler has more extras conceded this season.
Yeah, the other thing too, I mean, that's a great point with regard to his technical sort of capabilities as a bowler. When you look at the way he's been used within that CSK setup, he's been brought on in the second half of the innings, which is a high-risk sort of approach by a captain for a bowler who has the responsibility to finish the innings. Let's face it, there are times when a bowler will be off in a T20 match, but you can't pigeonhole that bowler to bowl every single time in the back end of the innings. So I just feel that at times, maybe they can use Pathirana just after the power play for him to get a feel of himself, for the captain and the players to know where he's at on that particular day, so that they can put contingencies in place so that they don't be left with no choice but to use him bowling in the last 5. And those are subtle variations they can use and probably get better outcomes from him as a fast bowler.
What Daren points out, was that a case of CSK wanting to replicate the template that worked for them and Pathirana in the last 2 years? Because this year, the middle overs returns have fallen off a cliff. No wicket. The same bowler last year, and he played only 6 matches, had 9 wickets through the middle while conceding barely a run a ball.
Absolutely. I mean, he was retained to bowl 3 overs in the last 10. But definitely, I agree with Daren here saying that he has to bowl that 1 over, maybe in the power play or just after the power play to get a feel of it. But Dhoni loves to set things up in terms of 11. He knows, okay, Pathirana bowls these 3 overs for me at the death, so I use him that way. So, I mean, it is unfortunate that he's not been able to deliver, but he has the skill to deliver. Everybody goes through a lull in their career. So, I feel this is a small little dip for him. And I'm sure he'll come back stronger because the management at CSK is very good at handling bad times and also very good at handling the personal when they're going through a low. So most of these players are skillful. I think about 8 to 10 of them will really raise their game for the next season. But it's all about who they're going to pick at the auction, the other 10 or 15 guys. And also coming back to Pathirana, I think his action needs to go maybe slightly higher for him to get a little more control in his bowling.
All right, zooming back in on the contest on hand, pick a favourite.
Of course, I'll go with Punjab Kings, the informed team, top skipper. I'll go with them.
I wanted the setup coming from you so that I can ask Mr. Rayudu, will Punjab do a hat-trick of wins at Chepauk?
I actually think CSK will beat Punjab in this game because we have seen a spark in batting and it'll slowly spread into that dugout.
You can move the man out of the yellow. You can't take the yellow out of the man. Thank you so much, Rayudu, Daren, for setting up the game for us. Chen, I know they want a win at Chepauk. One more defeat will mean it will be the season with the most losses for them at Chepauk in an addition.
How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.